Hello everyone, Pat Olson here on our CUSD YouTube channel as we sit down with the head varsity football coach, Mr. Holden, Keith Holden, with us as the Cougar varsity football team has just won the CCS Championship, and boy, they do it in big fashion. 54-7 in the title game over Pacific Grove. Coach, I know you were part of the staff back in 2005. So for you, I guess, what was kind of the different feeling now being the head coach of a program that wins the entire section for Division 5? Had to feel pretty good.
It definitely did. It feels really good. I still feel good right now about it. I wouldn't say it feels any different though. You know, in 2005, I really felt like we had a close group of kids. You know, real tight coaching staff, and I feel like this year we had a lot of the same. You know, we had our team was really like a family, and you know, really happy for the kids, really happy for everyone on our staff. It is a really good feeling. It's not. I mean, it's always a good feeling.
Yeah, it's a good feeling when you're champions. To talk about that game, because you know, going in, I was looking at scores, and you try and figure out, and I thought, gee, was Pacific Grove really the #1 seed? I felt you guys had a pretty good chance to win the game. Did you feel that you could win in that dominant a fashion against a good Breakers team?
I didn't feel like we could win, and you know, with the score margin being like that, I felt like we could compete with them. I felt like if we played well, we could come out on top. You know, I didn't expect a 54-7 win, but you know, watching them on film, I felt like if we stopped the run, then you know, I really liked our chances. We take care of the ball, stop the run, really liked our chances. So definitely, one of the things about the way that this whole system's set up nowadays, with the B and C leagues being together in Division 4 and 5, is that we can compete in our bracket. We're not going to play a private school that's you know, dominant football program, you know,
like a De La Salle or
we're not going to play
Pelham Prep or whoever.
Exactly. We're not going to come across those teams. So felt like we could compete with anyone. You know, I didn't think you know, we'd end up being that successful, but our kids played really well, and when we play really well, then good things happen.
You know, it's been a long journey for yourself. You came in the first year you took over as head coach, followed a successful year, and the way it works in the PAL is you bump up in league, and you inherited that tough schedule, if you will. And, you know, in all honesty, not a great win-loss record in year one, but over the 4 years, there's really been improvement here. For you, what's been like the growth experience like as head coach, and what was the difference as coming from a coordinator position to now suddenly it's your program?
Yeah, it's like night and day. You know, in the past it was, you know, Matt would take care of everything, or Coach Ballard would take care of everything, and I could just focus on the offense, and that was kind of like my baby, and that's all I had to deal with. And now it's like I have to deal with a ton. And one thing I had to learn how to do is delegate. I have an excellent offensive coordinator. I have an excellent defensive coordinator. I get to consult with them, and I don't necessarily have my hands on everything. And so for me, I mean, every position I've ever had, no matter what I'm doing, it's always a learning process. You're always trying to get better, and you're always trying to do a good job. But being a head coach, it's pretty overwhelming. It takes up a lot of your time, and to figure out what to delegate and who to delegate it to, and then how much consulting do they need on those things. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely different, and it's, you know, and don't get me wrong, I'm happy with winning the championship, but I'm still going to be looking for growth. I'm still going to be looking to get better, and how can we make our program better, and how can we put our kids in the best situation possible in order for them to go out there and get some wins.
Talk a little bit about your offense. You run that, I guess you call it the jumbo, I call it the bunch formation, yeah, when you have all the kids, you know, in there together, and yet somehow you guys managed to, you know, with all that packed in there seems to be a whole awful lot. There was one drive in particular against the Breakers where I think you ran the same play 4 or 5 times, the same exact play to Spiegelman, and they just couldn't stop it. He kept, the crack was always there. So, you know, how did you come up with that scheme, and how much do you work on that during the week, that jumbo package?
So I was first introduced to it when I was coaching in Southern California. We played a team that we were physically better than, and we should have beat handedly, and came down to the last play, and we ended up beating them. And we're like, how is this team competing with us? And they ran that offense. That's all they ran. It wasn't a wrinkle. It was like their bread and butter. And I coached defensive line, and it's really tough to coach against. And then Don Diaz ran it when he took a break from being in Half Moon Bay High School. He ran that same offense over when he was at Reardon for his 4 or 5 years over there. And so we had a couple years where, we had 17 healthy players, I think 21 players on the roster, and we said, how can we slow down the game? How can we be competitive when when our personnel may not let us be competitive? And we put that in as kind of a wrinkle to try to help us out. And if teams were up on us, we could slow the game down a little bit and get some first downs. And so I had experienced it before. I'd been around it. I hadn't coached it yet, but Don D, our offensive line coach, had coached it. And we sat down and we said, hey, how can we put this in? And what do we want to run out of this? And so, it's been a process. And we practice. We have our base offense, which is not that, it's a triple option, which we primarily practice, and then we do what we call our jumbo set. Maybe about 25% of practice time we'll spend on that, maybe 20 to 25%.
All right, you mentioned Don Diaz, and I feel bad because I'm going to ask you about him, and you have a lot of coaches on your staff, but he's the one guy that's really been a staple with regards to coaching these kids in Half Moon Bay. Expand on Don Diaz a little bit. Talk about what he's meant to the program and for these young kids, because I know they have an awful lot of respect for him.
Yeah, and as they should, and I feel the same way. I played for Don when
that just shows how long he's been around.
Yeah, so I played for Don. He was here years before I was here, and for me personally, I didn't have a male role model in the house, and he was kind of the guy I gravitated to, and I could say probably any kid on the coast side that's played for him probably feels the same way. It's just a role model, a mentor. He's really, really positive, just always encouraging. We actually have gotten to the point now where we feel like we're lucky for what we have. And he used to back in the day, before I became the head coach, every Wednesday night he used to take the offensive linemen and say, hey, take your helmets off. We're going to talk 5 minutes just about life, and he'd do like these life lessons. And so when I became head coach, I was like, why does the offensive lineman get that and not everyone else? And so what we now do on our Wednesday nights with Coach D is, we'll go to the middle of practice. We'll take our practice is broken up into 5-minute sessions, and we'll take 5 minutes out of practice where everyone takes their helmets off, everyone circles around Don D, and he'll talk about what we call them life lessons, and he'll talk about things other than football. He'll talk about, being honest. He'll talk about, looking at the man in the mirror, being happy with the man in the mirror. He talks about how to treat a lady, how to show gratitude, and all these things that, you want your players and people, people that you're teaching to understand and know, but you don't always necessarily make time for it. We've decided it's so important, and we're so happy to have Don with us that we've made time for it. And he's just been a tremendous impact on kids on this coast side for almost 40 years now.
Yeah, he's been around a long time. Keith Holden with us here, the head varsity football coach. Keith, we talked a little bit after the game. I've talked to you a couple times since you won the championship. You feel pretty good about the nucleus now of this team. You've developed a winning program here. 11-2 this season. A lot of kids coming back. Gavin Tomberlin, your sophomore quarterback, will be back next year. I know you lose some of the skill position guys, but do you feel like you can reload and be a good competitive team again next season?
I do. I feel like our JVs were 9-1. I feel like what we have coming back, and then don't get me wrong, I don't want to take anything away from the seniors. It's a special group of kids. I should say young men. So I don't want to take anything away from them. But I feel like we do have some players on the JV that could come in and try to fill those roles. I don't know if we're going to have a year like we've had this year, but I definitely think we can be competitive with what we have. I think our program's moving in the right direction. I think we should be okay.
All right. Last question for you, Keith. Now you're going to come into your 5th season. Have you now settled into that comfort zone as the head coach? Are you still enjoying it and having a good time despite all the extra admin duties that come with being the head guy?
Yeah, I always complain to my staff about how lucky they are. They just get to work with the players, and I think they're kind of tired of hearing it. But just to see the buzz around the town right now, and just to see how the kids, I always say kids, but these young men are just holding their heads high, and the pride they have in what they've done and what they've accomplished it definitely makes it worth it.
Well, Keith, congratulations. Well-deserved. I know the community was behind you. You had a lot of fans there. I think it was like 4-1, the fan ratio, Cougar fans to Breaker fans, the championship game. It's got to feel really, really good.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a great feeling, and it's great to have the support of the community.
All right, well, go Cougars.
Thank you.
All right, that's Keith Holden, the varsity football coach. As the Cougars are CCS champions, they win the Central Coast section for Division 5. I'm Pat Olson. Thanks for watching right here on our CUSD YouTube channel. He's had the bulk of the work, and again, it's a gift to Hoffman up the middle, surging forward, and he goes inside the 5 all the way down to about the 1 yard. Hoffman to throw, rolling to his right, left-hander turns, throws, got a man, it's Spiegelman, 10 to the 10 to the 5, touchdown, Cougars. For Half Moon Bay, as they will go for 2. Cumberland on the pitch, it's DeMartini, and he slices into the end zone, and it's 14-0 Cougars. The 5, and brought down at the 1 yard line. What a run by Spiegelman, first and goal, Cougars. Not had a whole lot to cheer about. Again, the jumbo formation. And again, it's Spiegelman who kicks his way into the end zone. Touchdown! Cougars.
Spiegelman in the end zone. Touchdown!
This time it's Hoffman behind Tomberlin. And again, same play to Spiegelman, knifing his way to the end zone. Touchdown! Cougars. And Half Moon Bay goes up. Traditional extra point. And this one is true. Run another play. Now down to 7. 4, 3, 2, 1. And congratulations to Half Moon Bay High School from the San Mateo coastline. Keith Holden, in his 4th year, guides his team to the CCS Championship, and they do it in remarkable fashion here tonight. There was no doubt as Half Moon Bay wins it 54-7. Drop thoughts on the game. All right, let's look at some of the final numbers. Half Moon Bay, a 7.
The extra point by number 23, Ivan DeLeon, is good.